Senna didn't know the dying wolf in the ravine was the Alpha King. She didn't know the two shivering pups he curled around were the only heirs to the Thornvale throne. And she definitely didn't know that pressing her hands to his wounds would awaken something inside her that had been dormant for 23 years. All she knew was that the crying had been going on for nearly an hour, and no creature in this forest made sounds like that, unless something had gone terribly wrong. The autumn wind cut through her thin cloak as she crouched at the ravine's edge, peering into the shadows below. Her basket of moon petal and woundwort sat forgotten beside her, herbs she'd spent all morning gathering. The crying came again, high and pitiful, and her chest tightened. Pups. Young ones, from the sound of it. Senna should have walked away. She knew that. Wolves didn't take kindly to outsiders near their young, and she was the worst kind of outsider. A wolfless omega. A broken thing that even her own pack had cast out 8 years ago. But the crying didn't stop. And beneath it, she heard something else. A low, labored breathing that spoke of blood loss and fading strength. She climbed down. The ravine floor was thick with fallen leaves, slick from last night's rain. Senna moved carefully, her healer's instincts cataloging the scene before her conscious mind caught up. Massive gray wolf, male, arrow shaft protruding from his left flank, another from his shoulder. Blood everywhere, soaking into the earth, painting the leaves black in the dim light. And curled against his belly, pressed into the hollow his body made. 2 pups no older than 3 or 4 in their human years. A girl with dark hair matted to her tear-streaked face. A boy with the same sharp features, his small hands fisted in the wolf's fur like he could hold him to life through sheer will. The wolf's eyes opened. Senna froze. They were gold, those eyes. Not yellow, not amber, but true burnished gold, the color of autumn sunlight through honey. And despite the pain clouding them, despite the obvious weakness in his massive frame, they held a warning that made her blood run cold. A growl rumbled through the ravine, low, deadly, the kind of sound that preceded torn throats and scattered bones. "I'm not here to hurt them," Senna said softly, keeping her hands visible. "I'm a healer. I can help you." The growl didn't stop, but it didn't escalate either. The boy looked up at her with eyes too old for his young face. "Papa won't let you close." "I know." Senna stayed perfectly still. "But your papa is dying. Those arrows are poisoned. Shadowthorn, if I'm not mistaken. Without treatment, he has maybe an hour left." The little girl's sob cut through the tension. "Please, please help him. We'll be good. We won't cause trouble. Just please." "Willa." The boy's voice cracked. "Don't beg. Papa said we never beg." "But Reed, he's—" The wolf's great head dropped. Just slightly. His breathing stuttered. Senna made her decision. She moved forward slowly, every step deliberate, her eyes locked on the wolf's. "I'm going to touch you now. I need to see how deep the poison has spread. If you kill me, your children watch you die. Is that what you want?" Those gold eyes held hers. She saw intelligence there, calculation, a predator's assessment. And beneath it all, desperation. He didn't move as her fingers touched his fur. The moment her skin made contact, something strange happened. A pulse of warmth shot up her arm, settled somewhere behind her ribs, and pulled. Senna gasped, jerking back reflexively. The wolf's eyes widened. He'd felt it too. "What?" she started, but there was no time for questions. His blood was hot against her palms, his heartbeat erratic beneath her fingers. Whatever that sensation had been, she'd have to examine it later. If there was a later. "I need to get him out of this ravine," Senna said to the children. "Can you walk?" Reed nodded, pulling his sister up. "We can walk. Where are you taking us?" "My cottage. It's not far." She was already calculating, 2 arrows, shadow thorn poison, blood loss, and shock. She'd need bone set, feverfew, and her entire supply of golden seal. The antidote would take hours to fully work, if it worked at all, if he survived long enough to receive it. "Can you save him?" Willa asked in a small voice. Senna looked at the dying wolf, at the children clinging to each other, at the blood still seeping into the hungry earth. "I'm going to try." The walk to her cottage nearly killed him. Senna had seen the wolf shift before they'd made it halfway, his body contorting, bones reshaping with sounds that made the children whimper. When the transformation finished, a man lay in the wolf's place, naked and shivering, the arrows still embedded in human flesh now. She'd given him her cloak, wrapped it around his shoulders while trying not to stare. Failed miserably. He was beautiful in the way storms were beautiful. Dark hair plastered to his forehead with sweat, jaw sharp enough to cut glass, and a body that spoke of violence refined into art. Even wounded, even half-conscious, he radiated power. The cottage was small, just 2 rooms built against a hillside, but it was warm and dry and stocked with everything she needed. She'd worked alone for 8 years, treating injured animals, the occasional desperate traveler, anyone who needed help, and didn't ask questions about why an Omega lived in exile. She directed the children to the hearth, wrapped them in blankets, and pressed cups of warm honeyed milk into their trembling hands. Then she turned to their father. He'd collapsed onto her narrow bed, breathing shallow, skin gray beneath its natural tan. The arrows would need to come out before she could treat the poison. That meant pain. That meant blood. That meant touching him again. Senna hesitated, remembering that strange pulse of warmth, the way something had shifted inside her chest. She'd never felt anything like it. In 23 years of being hollow, of being the Omega without a wolf, she'd grown accustomed to the emptiness where her other half should be. This man had made that emptiness ache. Do it. His voice was rough, strained. His eyes had opened, those impossible gold eyes watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "I can take the pain. The poison. I know." He turned his head slightly, looking at his children huddled by the fire. "Just keep me alive long enough to see them safe. After that, it doesn't matter." Something in his tone made her chest tighten, the resignation, the acceptance of death, as long as his children survived. "What's your name?" she asked, gathering her supplies. He was silent for a moment. "Riven." "I'm Senna." She set her tools on the table beside him. Knife, needle, thread, a bowl of water already darkening with crushed herbs. "This is going to hurt, Riven. A lot. I've had worse." She doubted that, but she didn't argue. The first arrow came out with a wet sound that made Willa cry out from across the room. Reed pulled his sister close, covering her ears, his own face pale but determined. Riven didn't scream. His body went rigid, tendons standing out in his neck, but he didn't make a sound. The second arrow was deeper. Senna worked carefully, her hands steady despite the blood slicking her fingers. She'd done this before, treated wounds that should have been fatal, coaxed life back into bodies that had every reason to give up. But she'd never done it while fighting the urge to press closer, to breathe him in, and to understand why touching him felt like coming home. When both arrows were out, she packed the wounds with golden seal paste and began stitching. Riven watched her work, his gaze sharp despite the pain. "You have no wolf," he said quietly. Senna's hands faltered. Just for a moment, just a single missed beat, but he noticed. Of course he noticed. "No," she kept stitching. "I don't." "How is that possible? You're an Omega. I can smell it." "Omega without a wolf." Her voice came out flat, practiced. She'd said these words so many times they'd lost their sting. Almost. "Born broken. Cast out at 15 when it became clear I'd never shift, never bond, never be anything but a burden. She waited for the disgust, the pity, the dismissal she'd seen in every wolf's eyes since she'd presented as Omega without the wolf to match. Instead, Riven said, "You saved my life. You're saving it still." Senna looked up, startled. His gold eyes held no judgment, just exhaustion, gratitude, and something else she couldn't name. "A broken thing," he murmured. "Wouldn't have climbed into that ravine. Wouldn't have risked a dying wolf's teeth to help strangers." His voice dropped lower. "There's nothing broken about you, Senna." Her throat constricted. No one had ever said that to her. No one had ever looked at her wolflessness and seen anything but failure. "Rest now," she managed. "The antidote needs time to work." His eyes drifted closed, but just before sleep claimed him, he spoke again. "Someone is hunting us. They won't stop until we're dead." Senna's hands stilled on the bandage. "Who's hunting you?" But Riven was already unconscious, leaving the question hanging in the air like smoke. He slept for 2 days. Senna kept vigil, changing his bandages, forcing water between his lips, monitoring the poison's slow retreat from his system. The children stayed close, eating the simple meals she prepared, speaking in hushed voices when they thought she couldn't hear. "Do you think she knows who Papa is?" "Don't be stupid, Willa. Nobody knows we're here. That's the point." "But what if she finds out? What if she tells someone?" "She won't. She's like us now. An outcast. She has no one to tell." Senna pretended not to hear, but the words lodged in her chest like splinters. On the 3rd morning, Riven woke properly. She was grinding herbs at her work table when she felt his gaze on her. Heavy. Assessing. When she turned, he was sitting up in bed. Color returned to his face, those gold eyes alert and calculating. "You should be resting," she said. "I've rested enough." He swung his legs over the side of the bed, testing his weight. The wounds had closed faster than any humans would, the wolf in his blood accelerating the healing. "My children?" "Sleeping in the next room. They're fine. Scared, but fine." He nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "How long was I unconscious?" 2 days. Something flickered across his face. Worry, calculation, fear. "That's too long," he said, almost to himself. "They'll have expanded the search by now. Found our trail." "Who?" Senna set down her mortar and pestle. "Your children said someone was hunting you. Who wants you dead?" Riven studied her for a long moment. She could see him weighing options, deciding how much to reveal. "My uncle," he said finally. "Aldrick of Thornvale. He staged a coup 3 nights ago. Killed my advisors, burned the Great Hall, tried to put arrows in my back while I fled with my children." His jaw tightened. "He's been planning this for years, positioning his allies, undermining my rule, waiting for the perfect moment to strike." Senna's mouth went dry. "Thornvale. That's the largest pack in the Northern Territories." "Yes. Which would make you Alpha King." He said it simply, without pride or pretension. "Or I was, until my uncle decided the throne suited him better." The Alpha King. She'd heard stories, of course. Everyone had. The young ruler who'd united the fractured northern packs after decades of war, who'd negotiated treaties with the eastern clans and held the border against southern raiders. They said he was fair but fierce, just but unforgiving. They never mentioned that he had eyes like molten gold, or that his voice could make her chest ache with longing. "Your Majesty?" The title felt strange on her tongue. I'm not Riven." He cut her off, his voice firm. "You saved my life. You fed my children. You owe me no titles." He paused. "And I owe you a debt I'm not sure I can repay." "There's no debt." Senna shook her head. "I'm a healer. This is what I do." "Perhaps." He rose, moving toward her with a predator's grace despite his healing wounds. But I still need your help, Senna. More than you know. She should have stepped back. Should have maintained the distance that kept her safe, kept her isolated, kept her from wanting things she could never have. Instead, she stood her ground as he stopped mere inches away. I can't travel, he said quietly. Not yet. The poison weakened me more than I want to admit, and my children are exhausted. We need somewhere safe to hide while I regain my strength and send word to my allies. You want to stay here? 7 days. His eyes held hers. Give me 7 days to heal, to make contact with the wolves still loyal to me. After that, we'll leave, and you'll never see us again. And if your uncle's men find you here? Senna heard her own voice, steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. If they trace you to my cottage? They won't. You can't promise that. No, he admitted. But I can promise that if they come, I'll face them alone. You won't suffer for sheltering us. It was a lie. A kind one, but still a lie. If Aldrick's hunters found the deposed Alpha King hiding in a Wolfless Omega's cottage, they'd kill everyone inside. No witnesses. No mercy. She should say no. Should demand he take his children and leave. Find somewhere else to hide. Someone else to drag into his war. But she thought about Willa's tears, Reed's fierce protectiveness, and the way both children had started following her around the cottage like lost ducklings. She thought about Riven's voice in the ravine, promising to die as long as his children survived. What do I get? The words came out before she could stop them. If I help you for 7 days and risk my life doing it, what do I get in return? Riven's expression shifted. Respect? Maybe. Recognition? Name it. Protection. The word tasted like desperation, but she said it anyway. A place where I'm not an outcast, where I don't have to live in exile because my wolf never came. Done. No hesitation. No bargaining. When I reclaim my throne, you'll have a home in Thornvale, full pack status. Anyone who treats you as less will answer to me. Just like that? Just like that. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Senna looked at his offered palm. Broad, calloused, the hand of a warrior. She reached out and took it. The moment their skin touched, that pulse of warmth exploded through her again. Stronger this time. Undeniable. It raced from her palm to her heart, settled into her bones, and locked into place like a key finding its tumbler. Riven's breath caught. His grip tightened on her hand, not painful, but desperate. His pupils had dilated, the gold of his irises burning brighter. That feeling, he said roughly. What is that? Senna tried to pull away, but her body wouldn't cooperate. I don't know. I've never... Mate bond? The voice came from the doorway. They both turned to find Reed standing there, his young face knowing beyond his years. That's the mate bond, the boy said quietly. Papa always described what it felt like when he met Mama. A warmth that locks into place. He looked between them, something like hope flickering in his eyes. You're each other's mates. Senna's world tilted sideways. No, that wasn't possible. She was wolfless, broken. Mate bonds were for complete wolves, for omegas whose other halves had actually awakened. She couldn't read. Riven's voice was strained. Go check on your sister. The boy hesitated, then retreated into the other room. Slowly, Riven released Senna's hand. The warmth remained, pulsing gently in her chest, refusing to fade. Is he right? She whispered. Is that what this is? Riven's expression was unreadable. It feels like the stories say it should. But you don't have a wolf. A bond shouldn't be possible. Then what is it? He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his own palm like it had betrayed him. I don't know, he admitted finally, but I intend to find out. He turned away, moving to the window to stare out at the forest beyond, His shoulders were rigid, tension radiating from every line of his body. 7 days, he said, not looking at her. After that, you're free to walk away. Whatever this is between us. He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. It doesn't obligate you to anything. I won't trap you, Senna. Not with bonds, not with debts, not with anything. The words should have reassured her. Instead, they made her chest ache with something that felt dangerously close to disappointment. Get some rest, she managed. Your wounds still need time to heal. She fled to her herb garden before he could respond, her hand still tingling where he'd touched her. 7 days, she told herself. 7 days, and then he'd be gone, and she could go back to her quiet, lonely life. But even as she thought it, she knew it was a lie. Whatever had sparked between them in that handshake, whatever bond had somehow formed despite her brokenness, it wasn't going to let her go that easily. And the terrifying part? She wasn't sure she wanted it to. The next 2 days passed in a strange rhythm. Mornings, Senna checked Riven's wounds, applied fresh poultices, monitored the last traces of Shadowthorn leaving his system. His body healed faster than she'd expected, the wolf in his blood-knitting flesh and muscle with supernatural efficiency. By the 4th day, only faint pink scars remained where the arrows had pierced him. Afternoons belonged to the children. Willa had latched onto Senna like a burr, following her through the cottage, asking endless questions about herbs and healing and why she lived alone in the forest. Reed was more reserved, watching from doorways, his young eyes carrying burdens no child should bear. Papa used to take us hunting, Willa said one afternoon, helping Senna sort dried lavender. Before Mama died, we'd run through the Thornvale woods and he'd teach us to track deer. Your mother, Senna hesitated. When did she pass? 3 winters ago. Willa's small fingers stilled on the lavender stems. The sickness took her. Papa held her hand until the end. A knot formed in Senna's stomach. She looked through the window at Riven, who stood at the edge of her property, staring north toward the mountains, toward home. He hasn't been the same since, Reed said quietly from the corner. Senna hadn't realized he was listening. He rules because he has to, fights because he must. But something in him broke when she died. Reed. Willa's voice was sharp. Don't say that. It's true. The boy's eyes met Senna's. You're the first person he's looked at since Mama. Really looked at. I saw him watching you yesterday while you worked in the garden. Heat crept up Senna's neck. I'm just his healer. Reed's expression was far too knowing for a child his age. If you say so. That evening, Riven told her about Thornvale. They sat by the fire after the children had fallen asleep, the flames casting dancing shadows across his face. He spoke of towering pine forests and mountain streams that ran cold and clear, of the great stone keep where his family had ruled for 12 generations, of feast halls and training grounds, and a library that held texts older than memory. It sounds beautiful, Senna said softly. It was. His jaw tightened. Before my uncle filled it with traitors. How many wolves stayed loyal to you? I don't know. The admission seemed to cost him. Aldrick struck during the blood moon celebration, when everyone was drunk and distracted. My personal guard died buying us time to escape. After that, he shook his head. I've heard nothing. For all I know, everyone who supported me is already dead. The rawness in his voice made her reach out instinctively, her fingers brushing his arm. That warmth pulsed between them again. Gentler now, but no less present. Riven looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face. Something shifted in his expression. You should know something, he said quietly. If I reclaim the throne, I'll be expected to take a new mate. Someone political. An alliance marriage to secure support. The words hit her like ice water. Of course, he was a king. Kings didn't bond with wolfless outcasts, no matter what strange magic sparked between them. I understand. She pulled her hand back. The bond, whatever it is, it doesn't have to mean anything. That's not... He stopped, frustration flickering across his features. I'm not saying I want that. I'm saying it's what my council will demand, what my people will expect. And what do you want? The question hung between them. Before he could answer, a howl split the night air. Distant, but unmistakable. Riven was on his feet instantly, every line of his body going rigid. They found us, he breathed. Before we continue, take 2 seconds to like this video and subscribe. It helps more people find these stories. The howl came again, closer this time. Then another, answering from the east. How many? Senna's heart hammered against her ribs. Riven's nostrils flared, scenting the wind. 3, maybe 4. Scouts. They're searching, not attacking. He moved to the window, scanning the darkened tree line. They haven't found us yet, but they're close. What do we do? You do nothing. He turned, and his eyes had changed, gold bleeding into something wilder. Wake the children, keep them quiet, I'll lead the scouts away. You're not fully healed. I'm healed enough. He was already moving toward the door. If I'm not back by dawn, take Willa and Reed south. There's a village called Briar Hollow 2 days' walk from here. Find a woman named Mira. Tell her the king sent you. She'll protect them. Riven. He stopped, hand on the door frame, and looked back at her. Thank you, Senna, for everything. Then he was gone, melting into the darkness like he'd been born from it. Senna stood frozen for 3 heartbeats. Then she moved. The children woke without protest, their eyes wide, but their mouths silent. They'd done this before, she realized. Hidden while their father drew danger away. The thought made her sick. She gathered them into the root cellar beneath the cottage floor, a space she'd dug herself for storing winter vegetables. It was cramped and cold, but it would muffle sound and scent. Stay here, she whispered. Don't make a sound, no matter what you hear. Where's Papa? Willa's voice trembled. Leading them away, he'll be back. Promise? Reed asked, and for once, he sounded like the child he actually was. Senna couldn't promise. She knew better than to make oaths she might not keep. I'll keep you safe, she said instead. That's my promise. She closed the cellar door and scattered dried rosemary across the floor, an old trick to confuse tracking wolves. Then she waited. An hour passed. 2. The howls grew distant, then silent. Senna's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She brewed tea she didn't drink, checked on the children through the cellar door, paced until her legs ached. Dawn broke gray and cold. Riven didn't return. By mid-morning, Senna made a decision. She left the children with strict instructions. Stay hidden, stay quiet, don't open the cellar for anyone but her or their father, and she went into the forest. Tracking wasn't her gift. She had no wolf to guide her, no supernatural senses to follow a scent trail. But she knew these woods, every game path, every stream, every hollow where a wounded man might hide. She found him by the river. He was human again, slumped against a boulder, fresh blood seeping through his shirt. New wounds, claw marks raking across his ribs. You're supposed to be with the children. His voice was thin, strained. The children are hidden. Senna dropped to her knees beside him, already assessing the damage. You killed them? The scouts? 3 of them. The 4th ran. His laugh was hollow, pained. Aldrick will know where we are now. He'll send more. Then we have time while they regroup. She pressed her hands against the deepest gash, feeling the warmth of his blood against her palms. Can you walk? Do I have a choice? No. She helped him up, his arm heavy across her shoulders, his weight pressing against her side. The mate bond hummed at the contact, and she felt something else through it. His pain, his exhaustion, his desperate fear for his children. "You shouldn't have come for me," he murmured as they stumbled toward the cottage. "You don't get to die before our deal is finished." She adjusted her grip on his waist. 7 days, remember? You still owe me 4 more? His laugh was weak, but genuine. "Stubborn woman." "Broken woman," she corrected without thinking. "Remember?" Riven stopped walking. She looked up to find him staring at her with an intensity that stole her breath. "There's nothing broken about you," he said, echoing his words from that first night. "And anyone who told you otherwise was a fool." He kissed her forehead, soft, fleeting, gone before she could react, then started walking again, leaving her stunned and trembling in his wake. The next 2 days were the strangest of Senna's life. She treated Riven's new wounds, changed his bandages, forced him to rest when he wanted to plan and strategize. The children emerged from hiding cautiously at first, then with increasing confidence as they realized the immediate danger had passed. But underneath the routine, something had changed. Riven watched her now, not the calculating assessment of those first days, but something warmer. Something that made her skin prickle with awareness whenever she caught him looking. And she watched him back. She watched him with his children, the way his entire demeanor softened when Willa climbed into his lap, or Reed asked for a story. She watched him chop wood despite her protests, insisting he needed to move, to rebuild his strength. She watched him at night, when he thought she was asleep, standing guard by the window like he could hold back his uncle's army through sheer will. One night, Willa had a nightmare. Senna heard the screaming first, a high, terrified sound that cut through the darkness. She was on her feet before she was fully awake, moving toward the children's pallet by instinct. But Riven was already there. He sat on the floor beside his daughter, her small body gathered against his chest, his large hand stroking her hair. He was murmuring something too soft for Senna to hear, but whatever it was, it worked. Willa's sobs slowly quieted. "Bad dream," Reed explained from his own blankets, his voice tired. "She gets them sometimes. About the night we ran." Senna's heart clenched. She retreated to her work table, giving them privacy, but she couldn't stop herself from watching. From seeing the way Riven held his daughter like she was the most precious thing in existence. When Willa finally fell back asleep, Riven looked up and caught Senna staring. Neither of them spoke. He rose carefully, settling Willa back onto the pallet, then crossed the room to where Senna sat. The fire had burned low, casting everything in amber and shadow. "I didn't mean to wake you," he said quietly. "You didn't." She gestured to the herbs spread before her. "I couldn't sleep anyway. Too much to think about." "Like what?" "Like you," she thought. "Like this impossible bond. Like what happens when the 7 days end and you disappear back into your world." "Like how we're going to get you home," she said instead. "Your uncle will have scouts everywhere by now, traveling with 2 children. I'll find a way." He sat down across from her, close enough that their knees almost touched. "I've sent word through the old channels. If any of my allies survived, they'll know where to find me." "And if they didn't survive?" His jaw tightened. "Then I build new alliances, gather the scattered, come back stronger." He paused. "It might take months, years even. And your children? They stay with me." No hesitation. "Whatever happens, I don't leave them." Senna nodded slowly. She understood that kind of fierce devotion. Had never experienced it herself, but she recognized it. "You're a good father," she said softly. Something flickered in his eyes. "I try. Their mother was better at it. She knew how to make them laugh, how to turn everything into an adventure. I'm just—" He stopped looking at his hands. "I'm just trying not to fail them." "You haven't failed them. They're alive because of you." "They're alive because of you." He met her gaze. You could have walked away that first day. Should have, probably. But you didn't. I told you. I'm a healer. It's what I do. Is that the only reason? The question hung between them, loaded with meaning. Senna's pulse quickened. What do you want me to say? The truth. He leaned forward slightly and she could smell him. Pine and wood smoke, and something underneath that was purely him. Whatever this bond is, however impossible it should be, I feel it. Every time you're near, every time you touch me, it's like... He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. It's like finding something I didn't know I'd lost. Her heart skipped. Riven. I'm not asking for anything. His voice was rough. I know you've been hurt. I know you have every reason to distrust wolves, to distrust me, but I need you to know that this is real for me. Whatever happens after the 7 days, however this ends. His hand found hers on the table, his fingers intertwining with her own. You're not broken, Senna. You've never been broken. And anyone who sees you and doesn't recognize your worth is blind. Tears pricked at her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. You don't know me, she whispered. I know enough. His thumb traced circles on her palm, and the bond between them pulsed warm and bright. I know you faced a dying wolf when anyone sane would have run. I know you've treated my wounds without flinching. I know my children trust you, and they don't trust easily. Not anymore. That doesn't mean... I know you're afraid. He cut her off gently. I'm afraid too. Of losing. Of failing. Of wanting something I might not get to keep. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. But I'd rather have 7 days of this, he murmured against her skin, than a lifetime of wondering what we could have been. Senna's resolve crumbled. She leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and hungry and full of everything she'd been holding back since the moment she'd touched him in that ravine. Riven made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer, one hand tangling in her hair, the other pressing against the small of her back. The bond between them flared, bright and undeniable, weaving them together in ways she didn't fully understand. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Senna pressed her forehead to his. This is insane, she whispered. Probably. His voice was rough. Is that a no? She thought about all the reasons she should say yes, all the walls she'd built, all the years of isolation and survival, and telling herself she didn't need anyone. Ask me again after the 7 days, she said finally, when you're not hiding and I'm not patching you up. Ask me when we know if this is real or just desperation. It's not desperation. His eyes burned into hers. But I'll wait. As long as you need. He kissed her forehead, soft and reverent, then pulled back. Get some sleep, Senna. Tomorrow, we plan. He returned to his post by the window, and she retreated to her bed, her lips still tingling, her heart still racing. She didn't sleep, but for the first time in 8 years, the loneliness that had been her constant companion felt a little less absolute. The following morning brought visitors. Senna was grinding feverfew when she heard the horses. Multiple sets of hooves, moving fast, getting closer. Riven was already at the window, his body coiled tight. How many? She asked, setting down her mortar. 6 riders, armed. His voice was deadly calm. They're wearing Aldrick's colors. Senna's pulse spiked, breath catching in her throat. The children? Already hidden. Reed's voice came from the cellar door, which sat slightly ajar. Will is with me. We won't make a sound. Riven crossed to Senna in 3 strides. Listen to me. Whatever happens, you don't know who I am. I'm just a traveler you found injured in the forest. You treated me because that's what you do. They won't believe that. They don't have to believe it. They just have to doubt enough to leave you alive. His hands gripped her shoulders. If things go wrong, if they try to take you, I can handle myself. Senna, his voice cracked. Promise me. If they try to take you, you run. You take the children and you run. Don't look back. I'm not leaving you. You are if it means surviving. He pressed his forehead to hers just for a moment. Promise me. The hoofbeats were louder now. Almost here. I promise, she lied. The knock came hard enough to rattle the door on its hinges. Riven stepped back, positioning himself behind the door where he'd be hidden when it opened. Senna took a breath, smoothed her expression into something neutral, and lifted the latch. The man on her doorstep was tall and angular, with a cruel mouth and eyes the color of dirty ice. Behind him, 5 warriors sat mounted, their hands resting on sword hilts. Good morning? His smile didn't reach his eyes. We're looking for a fugitive. A man traveling with 2 children. Seen anyone matching that description? No. Senna kept her voice steady. I live alone. Don't get many visitors. Is that so? He looked past her, scanning the cottage's interior. Mind if we take a look inside, just to be certain? I do mind, actually. This is my home. The man's smile turned sharp. Wasn't really a question. He pushed past her, and his warriors dismounted, filing in behind him. Senna's stomach lurched as they searched, overturning baskets, rifling through her herbs. One of them kicked apart her carefully stacked firewood. Riven was gone. She didn't know how, didn't know where, but the space behind the door was empty. Interesting. The leader picked up a bloodied bandage from her waste bin. You said you live alone. What's this from? I'm a healer. I treat injured animals. Animals? He lifted the bandage to his nose, inhaling. His eyes narrowed. This blood is wolf. Senna's stomach dropped. A wounded wolf came to my door 3 days ago, she said, the lie flowing easily. I treated him and he left, that's all. A wolf came to you. He stepped closer, crowding her space. And you, a wolfless Omega, just decided to help? He knew. She could see it in his eyes. He knew exactly who she'd been hiding. Where are they? His hand closed around her throat, not squeezing, but threatening. The king and his whelps. Tell me, and I'll make your death quick. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar. His grip tightened. My scouts tracked them to this area. They're here somewhere. And you're going to tell me where. Black spots danced in Senna's vision. Then a voice came from the doorway, cold as winter steel. Let her go. The leader spun. Riven stood in the entrance, fully shifted into his wolf form, massive, gray-furred, and radiating power that made the air itself feel heavy. His gold eyes burned with lethal promise. Your Majesty. The leader released Senna, who stumbled back, gasping. We've been looking for you. Riven shifted back to human form, naked and unashamed, his gaze never leaving the man who'd threatened his mate. You found me. Now you get to decide how you die. The fight was brutal and brief. Riven moved like violence made flesh, tearing through the first 2 warriors before they could draw their swords. The third managed a wild slash that opened a cut across Riven's shoulder, but he barely seemed to notice. He caught the man's wrist, twisted, and the warrior's own blade found his throat. Senna grabbed a knife from her work table. The 4th warrior came at her, clearly thinking the wolfless Omega would be easy prey. She proved him wrong. 8 years of living alone in the wilderness had taught her things: where to strike, how to move. The blade found the gap in his armor and he went down screaming. She'd never killed before. She didn't have time to feel it. The 5th warrior fled. Riven let him go. A message, Senna realized. A warning to Aldrick that his brother's son still lived. That left the leader. He was on his knees now, Riven's hand around his throat, lifted half off the ground. His cruel eyes had gone wide with fear. "Please." The word came out strangled. "I was just following orders." "You put your hands on her." Riven's voice was barely human. "You threatened to kill her. For that alone, I should tear out your heart." "Riven." Senna's voice cut through his rage. "Wait." He looked at her, and she saw the wolf in his eyes, barely leashed, hungry for blood. "He knows things," she said carefully. "Aldrick's plans, his weaknesses, the location of his forces. Dead men can't answer questions." For a long moment she thought Riven would kill him anyway. Then, slowly, the gold in his eyes receded. "Bind him," he said to no one in particular. "We'll take him with us." "Take him where?" Senna asked. Before Riven could answer, the sound of horses reached them again. More this time. Many more. Senna's heart seized, but Riven was smiling. "Right on time," he murmured. 20 riders burst from the tree line, their armor gleaming in the morning sun. At their head rode a woman with silver-streaked hair and a face like carved granite. "My king." She dismounted in a fluid motion, dropping to one knee. "We came as quickly as we could." "Counselor Vex." Riven's voice warmed. "It's good to see you alive." "It'll take more than Aldrick's treachery to kill me." The woman rose, her sharp eyes sweeping over the scene, the dead warriors, the bound prisoner, Senna standing blood-spattered with a knife in her hand. "I see you've been busy. I had help." Riven looked at Senna with an expression that made her breath catch. "More than I deserved." The cellar door burst open, and Willa came flying out, Reed close behind. "Papa!" She launched herself at Riven, who caught her despite his wounds. "You won. You beat them all." "We won," he corrected, his eyes still on Senna. "All of us." Counselor Vex organized the chaos with military efficiency. The bodies were removed. The prisoner was secured. A tent was erected outside the cottage for the warriors who would stand guard. And then she told them what she'd learned. "Aldrick's hold is crumbling," Vex said, spreading a map across Senna's table. "He overplayed his hand. Too many wolves died in the coup, and the packs are angry. He's been conscripting warriors, forcing loyalty through fear, but it's not holding." "How many still support him?" Riven asked. "Perhaps 300, maybe fewer." Her finger traced a route on the map. "If we move now, while he's still consolidating, we can end this in a single strike. The children will be protected." Vex's voice softened slightly. "I've brought my best trackers. They'll guard them with their lives." Riven was quiet for a long moment, studying the map. "When do we move?" he asked finally. "Tomorrow at dawn. It's a 2-day ride to Thornvale. We hit them on the 3rd morning before Aldrick expects us." Riven nodded slowly. Then he looked at Senna. "I have to see this through, but you've more than fulfilled our bargain. You're free to stay here, safe, while we—" "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. Riven blinked. "No? I'm coming with you." She lifted her chin, daring him to argue. "You'll have wounded after the battle. You'll need a healer." "Senna, this isn't your fight. It became my fight when I climbed into that ravine." She stepped closer, holding his gaze. "It became my fight when your children started calling this place home, when you—" She stopped, swallowed. "I'm coming. That's not negotiable." Something blazed in Riven's eyes. Pride, maybe. Or love. "Stubborn woman," he murmured. "You keep saying that like it's an insult." "It's not." He pulled her close, right there in front of Vex and the warriors and his children. "It's my favorite thing about you." The battle for Thornvale lasted 6 hours. Senna didn't fight. She stayed behind the lines with the other healers, treating the wounded as they came in. But she heard the reports, watched the tide turn, saw the moment Aldrick's forces broke and began to flee. And she saw Riven return, blood-soaked and victorious, carrying his uncle's head. The great hall was reclaimed by noon. By sunset, the remaining traitors had either surrendered or died. By nightfall, the wolves of Thornvale were chanting their king's name. Senna stood at the edge of the celebration, feeling out of place in this grand stone fortress with its towering windows and ancient tapestries. She'd cleaned the blood from her hands, borrowed a dress that didn't quite fit, and tried to make herself invisible. It wasn't working. Wolves kept approaching her, thanking her, pressing her hands between their own. Word had spread about the Wolfless Omega who'd saved their king, who'd sheltered his children, who'd killed a warrior twice her size with a kitchen knife. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt exhausted. "There you are." Riven's voice made her turn. He'd bathed and changed, the blood and grime replaced by fine wool and polished boots. A thin crown sat on his brow. Not gold, but iron. A warrior king's crown. "Your Majesty." She started to curtsy. "Don't." He caught her hands, stopping her. "Not you. Never you. Riven, I need to say something." He pulled her closer, away from the crowd, into a shadowed alcove where they could be alone. "The 7 days are over. Our bargain is fulfilled." Her heart stuttered. "I know. Which means you're free to leave. I promised you a home here, and that promise stands. But if you want to go, if you want to return to your cottage and your quiet life." He took a breath. "I won't stop you." "Is that what you want?" "No." The word came out raw. "What I want is for you to stay. Not because of bargains or debts, but because you choose to. Because you want to be here." His hands tightened on hers. "Because you want me." Senna looked at him. This fierce, broken, beautiful man who'd crashed into her life and upended everything she thought she knew about herself. "I'm Wolfless," she said quietly. "Your council will never accept—" "My council can go hang." His voice was fierce. "You saved my life, saved my children, fought beside me when you had every reason to run. If they can't see your worth, they're not fit to advise me. And the mate bond? It shouldn't be possible. I don't have a wolf. Maybe the bond doesn't need a wolf. Maybe it just needs you." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Senna, I've spent 3 years grieving. 3 years just surviving, going through the motions, telling myself that duty was enough. Then I found you. And for the first time since my wife died, I felt alive again." Tears pricked at her eyes. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "I've been alone so long. I don't know how to be anything else. Then we'll figure it out together." His thumb brushed her cheek, catching a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "Stay, Senna. Not for the bargain. Not for my children. For yourself. For us." She thought about the ravine, the wounded wolf, the 2 shivering pups who'd burrowed their way into her heart. She thought about her cottage, quiet and lonely, waiting for her in the forest. And she thought about this man who'd looked at her wolflessness and seen strength instead of brokenness. "Yes," she whispered. Riven's entire body sagged with relief. "Yes," she said again, stronger. "I'll stay. For myself. For us. For whatever this is." He kissed her then, deep and desperate, his hands cradling her face like she was something precious. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she heard cheering. She turned to find Willa and Reed watching from the hall entrance, their faces split into matching grins. "Finally," Reed said, sounding exactly like a long-suffering adult. Willa just ran forward and threw her arms around them both. 3 months later, on the night of the winter solstice, Senna became queen. The ceremony was held under a canopy of stars, with all of Thornvale gathered to witness. She wore a gown of deep forest green, her choice, not tradition, and walked barefoot through the snow because that felt right somehow. Riven waited for her at the altar, his iron crown gleaming in the torchlight. His eyes never left her face. The vows were simple. Partnership, protection. A bond freely chosen by both. When they spoke the final words, something shifted inside Senna's chest. The warmth that had been building since that first touch in the ravine suddenly blazed bright, settled deep, and locked into place with an almost audible click. She gasped. Riven's eyes went wide. The bond, he breathed. It's complete. And then, for the first time in her life, Senna felt it. A presence at the edge of her consciousness. A second heartbeat echoing her own. Not a wolf. Something different. Something new, but undeniably there. Impossible, Counselor Vex murmured from the crowd. Apparently not. Riven pulled Senna close, laughing with pure joy. Apparently my mate is good at doing impossible things. The celebration lasted until dawn. Senna danced with Riven, then with Willa, then with Reed, who grumbled about it but couldn't hide his smile. She ate food she couldn't name, and drank wine that made her head spin and felt, for the first time since she was 8 years old, like she belonged. Later, much later, they retreated to their chambers. Riven loved her slowly, reverently, like they had all the time in the world. And when they lay tangled together afterward, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear, Senna finally let herself believe this was real. "Tell me something," Riven murmured, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. "Something I don't know." She thought for a moment. "When I found you in that ravine, I almost walked away." "What stopped you?" "Willa's crying." And then she lifted her head to look at him. "And then I saw you, and something in me knew. Before the bond, before any of it. Something just knew." Riven's expression softened. "I felt it too. Even half dead from poison, even barely conscious. When you touched me, I knew I'd follow you anywhere. Even back to a tiny cottage in the middle of nowhere? Especially there." He kissed her forehead. "That cottage saved my life. Saved my children. Gave me you." "It gave me everything," Senna whispered. "A purpose. A family. A home. This is your home now." His arms tightened around her. "Thornvale. These walls. This bed. Wherever I am. That's your home." She pressed closer, breathing him in. Pine and wood smoke, and something underneath that was purely him. "I love you," she said. The words came easily now. "I didn't think I'd ever say that to anyone. But I love you, Riven. I love you too." His voice was rough with emotion. "More than I knew was possible." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, the bond humming between them like a promise. Senna had found a wounded wolf guarding twin pups and decided to save him. She hadn't known he was the Alpha King. Hadn't known the impossible bond that would form between them. Hadn't known that a wolfless Omega could become queen of the largest pack in the Northern Territories. But she knew now. And as the winter sun rose over Thornvale, painting the snow in shades of gold, she smiled. She'd poured everything she had into saving a stranger in a ravine, and he'd given her the world. Fair trade, she thought, the best one she'd ever made. Where are you listening from? Let me know in the comments. I love connecting with you. And if this story touched your heart, please subscribe. It's free, and it helps more people find their way to these tales.